Good evening. Thank you to the people on TikTok for watching my last upload. It's had 250,000 views. By anybody's standards, that's a huge amount of views. And I'm not sure what to say about it other than thank you. It's had thousands of shares, thousands of likes, thousands of comments. Somebody called Dan Wootton played a little clip of me having a go at a BBC journalist at the sentencing of Hugh Edwards. I think people think that's possibly the only thing that I've done, but I've actually been doing these things for years, decades. By the way, I live here in this very tiny little hut in a wood. It's 5.5 foot wide by 7.5 foot long. It's got a sloping roof, which is about 6 foot at the low end and 8 foot at the high end. And I've lived in there for a year. I'm not complaining. I live in a beautiful woodland. I'm very lucky indeed in some respects, and very unlucky in others. I can expose the BBC. I can expose the BBC on quite a lot of its lies about child abuse. The last activism that I did before I went to Hugh Edwards' sentencing. Hugh Edwards, a man I encountered outside BBC Broadcasting House a number of times. Me and Hugh Edwards used to go and eat at the same cafe at lunchtime. And if you've watched any of my footage from outside my protest at the BBC, you'll know that I spoke to lots of people. Lots of people that are on your telly. I never spoke to Hugh Edwards. I'm very triggered. I'm a survivor of childhood sexual abuse. In 1988, while I was doing group therapy, because I was groomed and abused in childhood, and it made me a very horrible person indeed. I talked about being groomed and abused. And I realised that I needed to report all of it to the police. The Metropolitan Police have taken absolutely no notice of any report that I've made from 1988 onwards. The BBC has interfered in my personal private life for decades. Anyway, I'm very triggered by the Hugh Edwards thing, because I was also abused by a member of BBC staff when I was about 9 years old. I was set upon by a group of men in a public toilet. And one of those men was Kenneth, who was also a BBC newsreader. Deja vu. From November the 14th, 2022 to the 15th of June 2023, I was in a tent 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for about 7 months, 7.5 months, protesting about child abuse. And I got harassed and attacked every single day, all through the day, by the BBC and its friends. I was subjected to criminal offences and the police did nothing about those. 3 weeks before my protest was removed, unbeknown to anybody, a mother and father of a young 17-year-old boy reported to the BBC that Hugh Edwards was paying their son for sexual images. The day after the BBC received that report, David Chick, also known as Spider-Man, came to the BBC where I was already in there in my tent protesting. And he climbed up and started smashing up the Eric Gill statue at the BBC. He was there for a few hours, got arrested, has never been charged with that offence. That's the BBC's way of keeping that story out of the media. Keeping stories about BBC and child abuse out of the media. I've got a lot to say, sorry, and I've rambled. And TikTok is a platform where you can only upload short videos. And people's attention spans these days seem to be that of a goldfish. So I've spoken for too long. I'm not a YouTuber, I'm not a content creator. I'm somebody who was abused in childhood. And that abuse has been covered up for my whole life. And that's why I do protests at the BBC. And that's why I go to people like Hugh Edwards sentencing. And when I hear a BBC journalist talking about exploitation, photographs and video of children as being child porn, I get quite angry about it. The BBC really needs to be exposed, and so do the Metropolitan Police. The relationship the BBC has with the Metropolitan Police is very, very unhealthy indeed. I love this wood, and I love my hut, and I love living here. But they're going to come and remove me from here if I don't shut up. Blackmail, bullying, coercion. I'd rather die doing what's right in misery than live a life of luxury, being a hypocrite and a coward. Thanks very much.